Hey, good morning. Good morning. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on. I'm really happy to be back building bridges. This morning, my guest is one of the first people who tried to establish a relationship with the Hex community and really did so successfully. And, despite a lot of people arguing against him, we haven't spoken for a while since I was on his channel. Welcome, Tao of Satoshi, Chris Caruthers. Hi, Chris.
Hi, great to be on your show.
Good morning.
Since we last talked.
Yeah, it has. It's been a while. It's been at least 6 months, probably longer, right?
Yep. It's been quite a while. A lot of things have happened since then. A lot of things have changed, but as you can see from behind me, a lot of things are staying the same.
Yeah. So your streaming area has stayed the same, but you have added a new, I don't know, it's not a new show, or is it a new show in addition to your show? It's called Hex-a-Dashers.
Yeah, basically it's like a show that for people in our community, in the Dash community, and also in the Hex community that might have an interest in the other currency, because they don't overlap at all. They're one is concentrating on payments and the other one is concentrating on being a store of value. Well, they're both kind of being store of value, but Hex is better at it than Dash, let's be honest.
There we go, yeah.
And Dash is better at being payments than Hex is. So right now we're trying to get people from Hex that might want to spend their Hex gains at some point, maybe not all of them. You're going to restake, obviously, but then you're going to want to have a place to spend them. And now Dash is working on ways to make that easier than using Ethereum or Bitcoin. And there's some things that we've done in the last little while that we're going to get into later on in the show that have made it much easier and actually made it beneficial for people to use Dash, other than the fact that it's a smooth payment network. And people in the Dash community, obviously, that don't have enough to start a masternode and get that income stream from the masternode, they might want to look into Hex and seeing how that's going to work as a store of value and as of saving money. And I'm a hardcore Dasher, don't get me wrong, but I've also set up my friends with Hex stakes because it just works better for smaller amounts if you stake longer.
Sure. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, so there's a lot of people, and some people who may be into crypto or just got into crypto with Hex may not realize that, really cryptocurrency started as a means of people, the idea was to become peer-to-peer digital cash, right? So that people didn't need to have bank accounts. So while that may seem ridiculous to a lot of people who are, newer to the space, there are people in the world who are living without bank accounts, either out of necessity or out of choice. So I'm one of those people. And having options like Dash that you can actually transact in are really important. And, Joel Valenzuela, who's known as the Desert Lynx, is probably the most well-known example of an unbanked person. And he's tried everything. And he's not closed-minded to using different cryptocurrencies as modes of payment. And he says that the only way to realistically live on cryptocurrency is to use Dash.
Yeah, in his area over in New Hampshire, there's it's called a free state, right? So there's a lot of people there. A lot of people there are into live free or die, no government intervention and stuff like that. So a lot of people there are into that message of trying to have that digital cash that's away from the government, not supporting the government and everything else, right? So it's kind of a perfect breeding ground for that type of thing. And he lives right there. So he's actually been shown on CNN before, actually going through his day and buying things in different places. And of course, CNN tries to throw that spin of oh, this is never going to work, and stuff like that. How is this going to be possible and everything? But Joel just says, oh, here I go paying at another place, and here I go paying at another place. He's just demonstrating that it can work, right? And it's so exciting to watch that.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to actually, in preparation for this stream, I watched your most recent episode of Hexa-Dashers just this morning. And a few different things kind of stuck out to me as interesting. I mean, one, you guys said you're fixing it so that when you start streaming that show again, the audio is going to be better, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. As you can see, I have a pretty good microphone. It's one of those ones that just attached here. So it's not like I'm yelling at it from across the room. But because he didn't have headphones, I getting the reverb from him, right? Mm-hmm. So that's now you have headphones and it's not reverbing as much.
I actually don't have headphones.
Well, it's weird. I don't know how you do it without headphones. You don't hear me in the reverb, but If it works, it works.
Yeah. Okay. So Dash plus Pulse. So Chris's idea when he first proposed this was that Dash and Pulse communities could be friendly with one another because they aren't competing. It's not like, it's not 2017 anymore where everyone's trying to compete to be the same thing, where everyone's trying to compete to be the payment network. It's now, 2021, and we have store of value. We've got obviously like Hex is a store of value, but certificate of deposit. So it's a savings mechanism, and you can transact in Hex, of course, but it's expensive, at least right now, because we're on Ethereum.
Right.
So with p-Hex, coming up with the launch of Pulse, whenever that happens, transacting in Hex will be much more efficient, but still establishing it as a payment network isn't exactly a priority. So your idea originally was that, not necessarily that there needed to be some kind of formal alliance, but just that, that people didn't need to feel like they had to choose, and that you could see the value and utility in both products independently.
Absolutely, because you're going to have somebody who's going to want to store value on Hex. They're going to be staking. They're going to watch their income rise. And then eventually that stake is going to end. And they might have something where they want to spend money on, right? They want right. an easy way to spend their money. And how are they going to do that? They're going to use Ethereum and pay $100 per transaction. Or they're going to change it to Bitcoin, and they're still going to have to pay money for the exchanges and all that stuff. But with Dash, like when you use Dash, the transaction is pretty much free, right? It's like the transaction fees are less than a penny. So you can go and spend like so many times, and you still wouldn't have like the amount of one Bitcoin transaction fee. So, and that's been our claim to fame so far. But now we've actually got an app called Dash Direct, where you can actually save if you're an American and you want to use Dash in the United States. You can save an average of 5%, but from 2% up to 12% at 155,000 locations all over the states. So this is a huge thing.
Cool. Well, you know what? I was on Joel's show at one point a while ago, and I've been meaning to invite him to come on because they're like, really to explain to people how they can transact in Dash, just like in daily, in their daily transactions without the merchant even knowing that that's what's happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a new app called Dash Direct. You can get it on the App Store, or you can get it on Google Play. And basically, you can just go to a merchant, and he's going to charge you like whatever he charges you. Say he charges you $10 and you get a 10% discount. I'm just doing numbers that are easy to explain. So he's going to charge you $10. You're going to punch in $10 on a gift card. And then in the background, you're only going to be charged $9 because you're going to get that 10% discount, but you're going to be able to show a barcode that says $10. So basically you just paid that $10, but you saved $9 because you paid with Dash. That's how that works.
Yeah, you're right, T-Bird. 31 cents. It is a good day to be a Hexican. You know what? There's not a lot of bad days to be a Hexican, especially not anymore. Okay, so really quick, before I get into some of the questions that came up when I was watching that HexaDashers episode, I wanted to ask you, the last time that I came on your show, we talked about like any resistance that you met within your community for, pioneering the idea that Hex wasn't necessarily the bad thing, the scam that everyone was saying it was. So how has that changed?
I'd like to say it probably hasn't changed that much.
Really?
I think that a lot of people in the community are pretty set in their ways. Especially with Dash, because we've gone through a lot of things that Hex is going through right now. Like we've gone through the stage where it's been labeled a scam, and like we had a rough launch and everything else.
Yeah.
And then we got kind of shuffled into the back burners of crypto. We try to post on our cryptocurrency, we get downvoted to oblivion. And this kind of hardens the community after a while when you've been treated that way for so long. Even when you see what happens on the inside, it's a perfectly legitimate project, and it's outperforming a lot of currencies out there. But because it's been gatekept and downvoted so much, we have that kind of hardened community similar to Hex. So I think that there's kind of still a little bit of distrust in the Dash community towards other projects just because of that. But
That's really,
but there
so
are
I'm really,
some like me that will go above and beyond that and come on your show.
so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it's something that, like I've consistently pointed out, not just within Hex, but like, so I think, you've been following me, you probably know that Hex is not the first like marginalized crypto community that I've spent time within by any, by any stretch. It's definitely the like greatest length of my I've been involved with it, not for the longest period of time, but like to the greatest degree, but so whenever I so it's been a, kind of trend that when I point out, hey, these like resistances to the possibility that there could be other legitimate cryptocurrencies or crypto projects out there are are a pattern, and they happen when groups get marginalized, or, when there's a lot of resistance from the whole. So a lot of times people will be upset with me for pointing that out, or say that I'm only suggesting that because it supports my theory about, crypto tribalism. And I'm like, it really like, it does support my theory, but I'm not saying it because I'm just wanting to support my theory. Like, it's actually the case. So it's really, I really appreciate you having independently come to that conclusion and sharing that.
Yeah, and I'd like to think that I'm looking for opportunities for me to gain advantage in the crypto community too, because I'll give it to Dash. If you have a masternode, it's pretty good because you can earn that interest because you perform services for the network, and in return for those services, you get a pretty good paycheck from the network. But if you don't have enough to be a masternode, what are your options? You can either sit on your Dash, or you can put it into a centralized server called CrowdNode. If you put it into that centralized company, you get like a piece of a masternode payment, but you have that counterparty risk that they could take off at any minute. I'm not saying they will. They've been pretty good so far, but that risk always exists.
Sure. And plus the interest is probably not like, what's the interest like for, the centralized for participating in CrowdNode?
Yeah, so CrowdNode has about a 7%, what the masternode is right now, approximately 7%. It's a little bit more because you get more of a payout compared to how many people are in there. I'm not going to get into it right now, but yeah, it's a bit of a more than an actual masternode payment, but it's still not anything near what Hex could bring you if you enter into even like a year-long stake. But the thing with CrowdNode is you can always take your money out at any time, whereas with Hex it's locked in. So
okay.
there is that, but for doing that, you get a much better payment in Hex, obviously. So it just matters what your long-term thinking is. So just to continue on with that thought, like I see that Hex is a good store of value for me for the money that I don't have in a masternode, and then I see that Dash is good for me to spend my money. So I don't think there's any overlap at all with these communities. I think they go together like hand and glove. And this is why I don't think there should be any animosity at all between our two communities, and we should work together, because we both have different goals.
So realistically, I mean, I agree with you, but I think that even when there is the potential for competition, that there's no reason why community members shouldn't be able to have conversations with each other so that we can learn from each other, so that we can, grow as a whole. So, like there are, not necessarily with Hex specifically, but, with Pulse, there certainly are networks that are competing, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I think that people who like Pulse shouldn't talk with people who like, any of the other networks that maybe it's competition. In fact, like I think that like doors of communication belong open, and that realistically the future that we're looking at is not, I mean, people used to say we were looking at, a one coin or a one chain future. And at this point, what's very clear is that that's not ever going to work, because one blockchain, not even Pulse, is going to be able to handle all of the transactions that, the world needs for blockchain to be a sustainable, for blockchain to really work. And every project that I've talked to, and I work in cryptocurrency, not for Hex or Pulse, but, I work for a cryptocurrency marketing agency, and every project that we represent has the ambition of, and, has it in their plan to be interoperable or multi-chain, and to operate wherever their product is useful. So what we're looking at is not a world where we need to say this chain is dominant or this chain is dominant. What the world that we need to be looking at is really like, when we could actually think of it more like blockchains as countries, and the ability to travel between them as our passports. And I would like for lines of communication to be open so that there aren't embargoes between certain countries, so that it's easy for me. So for instance, I'm going to the United Arab Emirates in next month in October for these series of conferences for blockchain month, really, but I'm going for a week. And so the UAE and the US have really civil relations. So I don't need even to get a special visa to travel. I just have to have a passport. I feel like that's how it should be with blockchains, and that if we can communicate with one another openly and freely, that's the way it will be.
Yeah, I can see that. Like there's a lot of different technology out there, and it's all pretty much open source, say for some situations. And a lot of projects are copying other projects and then adding more stuff to it. So yeah, I can see it. You're right. Like having a good overall, because we're not fighting each other overall. Right. We're fighting the fiat system.
We're fighting the legacy financial system.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we can all learn from each other, make our projects better. Of course, there's going to be ones that do it better than other ones.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, like we're all fighting the same battle here.
Yeah. And even some things like where people feel like, some project is junk, and so they don't want to have relationships with it, or it's a scam, and so they don't want to have any relationships with it or anyone who's associated with it. So I think that that's a really big mistake, because even if said project is junk, what we know about the way that it works is like when a group feels marginalized or attacked, they strengthen and are resistant to adopt or even look at anything else. And whether you think that, whether you ever want to look at that project or not, you want to remain friendly so that maybe people from that project will look at yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way it is, like with that, is like I'm thinking that there's a lot of projects that have something to give, but if you are always put down like that, it does harden you. Like I said at the beginning of the show,
yeah.
That's what our community is like. They ask, why am I Hex-a-Dasher? Why am I not Dash a Hexer? Just things like that. You know what I mean?
Because it sounds better.
It sounds better. That's the only reason. It's not like I'm putting Hex in front of Dash, and I'm not putting Dash in front of Hex. It's just that's the way it sounds better. But the stuff like that, and I'm also starting to notice it a little bit in the Hex community too. Like when I'm on Twitter, I see that it's kind of like, okay, it's us versus them, right? Where it should be like us trying to communicate and trying to get better. But I guess with Hex, it's a little bit different because it's already completed. It's not like you're going to get anything to change it. So basically, I guess you just have to hold on to it and promote it and stuff like that. So I guess there's that difference between Hex and Dash. But the fact that we've both been put down so much and gatekept so much, that's hardened both communities, I think, and maybe a little bit more resistant to change.
Absolutely. And I know, I agree with you. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because Hex is very unique in that it's really among the only thing that you could arguably say is also complete are like decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, where they can't, where Uniswap V2 still exists because the contract can't be changed. So even though there is now Uni V3, right?
Yep.
So Hex is really unique in that way, but regardless of whether a product is complete or is a project, it's still useful for us to be able to communicate with each other, because, if it was like, no, fuck you, fuck everyone who likes Dash, then, sorry, my dog has been coughing for a week, if that's what you hear.
Okay. So, I got a dog too. I love him.
Yeah. So if so when we're like, no, screw this project, screw that project, whatever, then that means that those people won't get involved. That means that there's a limited access of capital that can flow into whatever it is that you're liking, in this case, Hex and Pulse. And really, specifically with Pulse launch coming up, it's even more important now than ever that we are able to maintain relationships and show people that, it's not horrible to talk with advocates, hexicans or pulsicans or, advocates of this crypto community. So with all that said, so you said that you really haven't noticed much of a change. You haven't noticed more people in your community starting to come around to Hex? Because like from within Hex, like we still see a lot of maximalism. We still see a lot of, accusations that the token is a scam or that it's not going to hold up. That exists, but that has definitely started to change.
Yeah, I agree.
You haven't noticed the change from your side?
Well, in our community, it's not like there's nobody that likes Hex. Like we have like in the Discord, we have like an altcoin channel, and we talk about a whole bunch of different altcoins. And a lot of people have this hardcore. They just it's it. Like Hex is a scam. Hex is a scam. You're never going to convince me otherwise. It's just a scam. Yep. And then and we have a couple of other people that are ask questions. They want to do their due diligence. And then you got others like me that have just jumped in, and I think the people that are asking questions, they're slightly rising, they're slightly getting more, but it's not really something that I could quantify and I could say, oh yeah, everybody's starting to like Hex. But also at the same time, I've taken the summer off and I haven't been talking as much about it. So of course, yeah, nobody's going to be thinking about it if it's out of sight, out of mind, except for that one little channel on Discord.
Got it.
But see, now I'm talking to you, and my followers are going to see this, and I'm going to be starting to do more in the fall again. My summer's over, it's going to be cold here in Canada again, so I can be in front of the camera again. So I think over time it will probably soften up a little bit more, and obviously the longer Hex goes too, without getting rug pulled or anything, the more legitimacy it gets. And if I am any kind of judge of character at all with Richard Hart, I think he just wants it to be as successful as possible. And why would he kill the golden goose when I like when he comes up with these metaphors? Like he says, okay, Jeff Bezos isn't going to sell all his Amazon and crash the price. Elon Musk isn't going to sell all his Tesla and crash the price. It just doesn't make any sense. So I know I'm all for decentralization, but there are some aspects of centralization that are good, and Richard's proving it right now.
Well, right. And I mean, decentralization, like people use that term in a variety of different ways. And sometimes they use it kind of interchangeably to suit whatever narrative it is that they're trying to, portray at the time. So there's this really common misconception that decentralization means distribution of ownership, when that's really not what decentralization means.
Yeah, there's it could mean that, but it's like basically decentralization. In Dash, we have decentralization of decisions. So like actually the actual course of the project is handled by the masternodes through the trust, and we can affect change at Dash Core Group, which is the ones that do the coding and stuff.
Sure.
So but we also have a pretty decentralized ownership, whereas in Hex it's pretty much centralized to one person. But if that person doesn't decide to sell, then it's great. As we've seen the results of that. He doesn't need to sell, right?
So the last time that I streamed, I had a liquidity expert on, and we were talking, and this actually just came up during the course of the live stream. It was not something that I thought of in advance, but I thought, because we were talking about how it would be possible if with strongly decentralized ownership of a coin for someone or someone's to inadvertently or intentionally tie an asset's liquidity to something that maybe wouldn't be to the benefit of the asset. So if there were too much decentralized ownership, not only are there more people who can sell, which means if there's strong sell pressure, there's a stronger chance that people are going to panic and, everyone's going to sell because there's not one centralized holder. So that's one case for centralized ownership. And another case for centralized ownership is that an asset can move up or down in value based on what its primary liquidity is tied to. So if, several people were to create, because of decentralized exchanges where people can create pairs with, different liquidity pegs. So if there were, say, if ownership was decentralized and people were able to, let's say a decentralized exchange decided that they were going to incentivize a pool, for instance, a Hex Iraqi dinar pool, right? And they were incentivizing it really, really heavily. So people were like, oh yeah, I want to provide for this pool to earn whatever the rewards are. Then that could theoretically change the way that Hex's price would move. And that would be really a bad thing. I mean, theoretically could be a good thing, but probably would not work out to its benefit. So
that's something I've never even considered.
Yeah, so I
and Dash, we have no decentralized exchanges like that. But yeah, I could see it happening on a decentralized exchange for sure. Yeah. But I mean, obviously, it's Iraqi dinar. We might have to choose something else. But yeah, I could see that. Like, and that's an area that I haven't even considered either.
It was just meant to be like a far out there example.
Yeah.
And also because a lot of people who are into cryptocurrency now are people who had bought into the idea that the Iraqi dinar was going to increase in value and ended up buying a lot of it back then, and losing lots of their value. So it was just kind of like meant to be a far out there example.
I do remember that, because they were thinking that Iraq was going to come back and be this economic powerhouse with the oil and everything, but it never materialized, did it?
No, it didn't. And in fact, I recently polled Twitter to ask, like, hey, so is anybody still like holding their, anybody still convinced that Iraqi dinar is going to come back? And as it turns out, there's I guess a few people who are not necessarily convinced that it's going to come back, but just are still holding it because they never sold it and they're like, the model's hodl, you know? Yeah. So I do like hodl's the model, right? Like it definitely does work better. And because then you never know, right? Like what if something happened? Anyway,
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, if it's money that you just forgot about, then fine. Yeah.
Right. All right. Yeah. So we're already going on 30 minutes and I want to ask you a few questions about your last HexaDashers stream before we tie things up.
Sure.
Okay. So I was watching, and I'm sure that things have changed since then because I think that it was in either June or July. So we were talking about you were talking about how someone new had come on to the Dash team as the marketing coordinator, or the marketing director.
Yep.
And I was like interested in that, of course, because like I work in crypto marketing. So I really want to go back and watch that stream with Joel. If I had watched your stream far enough in advance, I would have done that already, but I haven't. But so have you noticed a difference in the way that Dash has been marketed since that occurred?
Well, there's always a big talk about marketing in the Dash community because we've previously spent a lot of money on marketing. Some things were good ideas, some things were not good ideas. But overall, there was an image of sometimes with the Dash core group and the way they handle Twitter and the way they handle communication is a little bit unprofessional. Like sometimes they have quarterly calls, but they don't talk to the community in between. And there was always a lot of spelling mistakes on the Twitter account, and it just didn't look so good, right? So basically, what we had to go and do some soul searching. The original person who was in charge of marketing left. He's with another crypto project now, and then they went and did an actual official search for people to handle the marketing position. So Arden took over. It's probably been about 3 or 4 months that she's been there. And she's saying, well, there's a lot of things that we don't have, like we don't have analytics. We don't have a lot of things that just basic infrastructure that we should have if we want to know how our marketing is working. So that's improved. There's the infrastructure that wasn't there before. I've noticed a good on Twitter, there's not as many spelling mistakes as there used to be. So that's good. When you're an official Twitter for a cryptocurrency that's valued over $1 billion, we don't need any spelling mistakes. And there's no excuse not to just go over it once or twice if you're only tweeting once a day, right? Mm-hmm. So that's improved. And also we've had a lot of coverage of our things. Like I mentioned, Dash Direct is our biggest one where you can save so much money at all these locations in the States. So we had a big marketing push through that. And there's also another one called Valkyrie, which is actually like a Dash Trust. So that's for accredited investors and stuff like that. And we can eventually you can have Dash in your 401k when we get to where it's going. So all these things were marketed a lot better. And so I am looking forward to a better marketing. Yeah, you're right. And I think that if you guys probably would like to talk to each other eventually, maybe compare notes, because she seems like she's whipping the team into shape over there.
Sure. Yeah, I would love
Yep.
to. So I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I need to watch that video with Joel, and then I should probably try and reach out to her and just see, what she's thinking. So one thing that I noticed from your interview is that she had said that you guys mentioned when you were talking with each other was that she had said that hi everyone, hi. Sorry. So was that she had said that the outreach to women was really poor within cryptocurrency and that needed to change. And that's definitely true. So there's so many times, like I said, I work for a crypto marketing company. So like we pitch ideas to our clients, and our clients like often I'm the only woman who works for the company. And so my ideas are often like completely different from other people's ideas.
No,
And
as
so
they should be, if you have a different perspective, right?
yeah. And so sometimes like I'll mention like, oh, I think, what if we did this? And they're like, no. Women aren't like, that's a woman, like that's advertising to women, and like women aren't our target audience. And I'm like, well, maybe that's the problem.
It is the problem.
Women control 80% of the retail economy in the world. So why are we not advertising to women? Not like in, separately, but in addition to. And it's probably because the retail economy and the investment economy are not the same thing, but I don't see why there's a reason. I think that there definitely should be specific outreach for women. One thing that I've noticed with Hex is that I think that there is a larger contingent of women within Hex relative to the total population than any other crypto community I've ever seen.
Oh, possibly. Yeah, I've seen quite a few women on Twitter for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that probably has something to do with the component of time.
Yep. And also the mad gains probably don't hurt either.
The mad gains don't hurt either. It may also be something about like the coloring, because Hex has the kind of pink and purple coloring, and it's like sunset-ish.
Yeah, like Hex just has so much going on when it comes to that. Like I listen to Richard and he's right. They've got the hex.com, like 3-letter dictionary, website. They've got like this
going forward as well.
Right. They've got this in your face logo that's like easily to put on t-shirts and easily recognizable once it gets viral. I just think he's thought of everything as far as what goes on in the currency as well, like in the staking, like all these game theories and ways to increase the value over time. Like, I don't know who did he come up with it himself? Did he talk to a bunch of people about it and say, what is the problem with other cryptocurrencies? But really, he's nailed it when it comes to being a store of value.
Well, so, definitely there is a team of developers who created Hex. He's not the sole person, but, he is the primary. So where he realized the problem with other cryptocurrencies probably comes from, his early involvement with Bitcoin.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. So one other point that I wanted to, mention regarding that stream that I watched was that I noticed that you were talking about like the need to, or the, potential for like creating a fund that would incentivize the community's, best creators or strongest advocates to do stuff like to public speak or to create different marketing materials or whatever. And I was thinking just that I could share with you and you can pass on the information, or maybe I can pass on the information myself, is that, so obviously within Hex, we have a really strong community of people who do it, not because there's any kind of incentivization for it, but just because we're heavy Hex holders. And so the incentivization is like the asset appreciating in value. But, outside of that kind of, fully organic. One thing that is really effective for the company that I work for those who we represent, is to create these ambassador programs that have even when it's really small amounts that incentivize. So there's application process to, become a part of the incentivized ambassador program. And then there are set tasks you can do so that you can earn small amounts. And then there are also people who prove themselves repeatedly can earn bigger tasks that can, there are people who do this for a living. So I thought that maybe I would mention that as something that you guys could throw around or think about.
Yeah, well, Dash doesn't get any credit for this. There was just recently a video came up by a pretty prominent YouTuber, and he's talking about all these DAOs, right? He's saying DAOs are the future. If you don't know what a DAO is, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. And Dash was actually the first DAO, and it wasn't even mentioned in the video. So how Dash works is we have our block reward, right? It goes 45% to the miners, 45% to the masternodes, and 10% to a decentralized treasury that the masternodes vote on every month to allocate these funds. And it's all decentralized. And if we vote them in, then they get paid through the blockchain. So one of these ones that are here now, like we're kind of getting over this fact that we haven't been given credit for being the first DAO. We were actually, remember the DAO that broke up in Ethereum? Like it got hacked,
of course,
and created Ethereum Classic.
Yeah,
we were actually before those guys. So, but anyway, that's in the past. So now, actually, one of the proposals that are actually going on for Dash right now is a marketing proposal, and Joel Valenzuela is actually heading it up. And right now, they're doing payments for videos. So if you use Dash Direct, this goes out to the Hex community. It doesn't matter who does it. If you're a Hexican, you can download Dash Direct from any state that you're in, as long as you have that. You say, okay, I'm in Wyoming or I'm in Utah. You could do it, and I'm buying something with Dash Direct, and you're going to get paid through this program. And this is all paid through by the Dash blockchain through our DAO.
Cool. So that's something that reach out to Joel.
Yeah, you should talk to him because that's something that he's doing right now.
Yeah, I definitely will. I'll send him a message when we get off this stream.
Cool.
All right, so we're not that there's a time limit on this show. We can go as long as we want or as short as we want. Sometimes I've done 10-minute streams. Right now we're over 35 minutes. What would you what have I not brought up that you would like to talk about or not asked you about that I should have asked you about?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that sometimes I think that shorter streams are better because it's pretty hard to hold the attention of people for hours and hours.
Totally.
So some people like to watch hours and hours, and all the power to you. But if I see a show that's hours and hours, I'm not going to watch it. I might watch that 10-minute video. I might even watch like you say, half an hour. But when it comes to the hours and hours, I just can't keep my attention for that long.
Totally, I'm with you there. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes there's an interview where you've got someone on who you maybe don't necessarily get often opportunity to talk with, and that's when it makes sense to me to have to do the longer streams. But then chopping those up into bite-sized pieces, we actually hired a team to do that now because everyone in Hex kind of models their streams after Richard, and how he can go on for 4 hours,
8 hours sometimes.
yeah, extreme cases.
Well, basically, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, since I realize it's probably mostly a Hexican audience that are watching this, download Dash Direct, get yourself some Dash, try it out. You get discounts on a lot of different merchants. You get discounts like Bass Pro Shops. You get discounts on Lowe's. Any kind of retailers that are in your area, you can just actually input nearby in the app, and it'll show you everywhere around you that you can get discounts. So that's pretty good. Give it a try. Let me know how you did, because we're really interested in how people do with Dash. And then if you have Dash, try it out yourself, and you'll see how it works very well compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I just want to do that little plug since I have a lot of Hexican audience in here.
Yeah, of
course.
As
you can tell, I'm with you guys too, right? So
yeah, of course.
I have a lot of Hex, but I have a lot of Dash because I believe in both of them.
Sure. And, I've told people repeatedly, some people don't like that when people from other communities come on this stream, they get the opportunity to plug. And I'm like, everybody gets to do what they want to do with their own money. But when you invite someone on your stream and you kind of pitch to them about Hex for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever, it's just called reciprocity. And that's how we build bridges. That doesn't mean that anybody's trying to make anybody else or try to get anybody else to buy another cryptocurrency. That's just courtesy. So
sounds like a good note to end on. Yeah.
I want to thank you for being here. I want to let everyone know, if you're not already following Chris, I put links in the description to both his YouTube channel and his Twitter. And then, we already really kind of have a bridge, but my show is called Building Bridges. And so the last question that I always like to wrap up is, will you build a bridge with me?
Absolutely. I'd like to see a decentralized exchange from Dash to Hex.
So you got it.
Is it like this? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like this. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. There we go.
There we go. Okay, so that bridge is now fortified. Thank you so much for being here. Chris, thank you all for tuning in. I will see you on Wednesday night. Bye, everyone. Hang on,
Cheers,
Chris.
off.